Hi, I'm Les from Tabletop Tastings. Today, we've got TK King, Dennis Northcott, and Kolton Thompson from Kinson Key Games, and they're here to talk to us about an upcoming Kickstarter that they've got, Galactic Cruise. Gentlemen, can you tell us a little bit about yourselves and how you got into board game development?
First, I'm TK. I am a native to Tennessee, which is where I grew up and live in the US, and always been a fan of board games. And I grew up with Kolton, playing games, enjoying games. And then when COVID hit, we got into more designing. So we had designed some before then, just like small things we'd play with our friends and family. But once we got into it heavily, found out it was something we really loved, got a lot of games to the table, and found Galactic Cruise was something that we felt like was worth pursuing. And so we really dove into the deep end with it. And that's kind of what kind of led me into wanting to design at least full time was just finding games that we love that we wanted to bring out to the world and just continuing to fall in love with it the more that we do it.
Like TK said, he and I grew up together. Just over the years, we have kind of gotten into all kinds of shenanigans together, whether it was filmmaking or going on cruises together and thinking about how could we, run a cruise line of our own. I feel like anything that we ever did, we did together, and we said, well, how can we get into this business? And with board games, there was just something different about it. Just like I like filmmaking, like we made short films and they were okay, but I don't know if we ever would have been the best at it. And there was something about board game design where we're like, maybe we're actually kind of good at this. And things just kind of kept falling into place for us. So yeah, and like you said, when COVID hit, we kind of really jumped in, like playing hobby games. Prior to that, we had played Catan, Carcassonne, Ticket to Ride, and that was about it, like outside of just like classic games. But then it was, about 2020 is when we really got into like modern board games as we all now kind of see them as the good ones.
That's awesome. And you, Dennis?
Yeah, so I did not grow up with TK and Kolton. Uh, I'm from Canada, so I live in Winnipeg. So nice to have another Canadian on my side here. So I took a little bit longer to get into game design. I've been a very hardcore player of board games for like since 2007, I think is when my game group started. We play pretty much every Saturday ever since then. Of course, we had to miss some during COVID, and occasionally somebody can't show up or whatever. But we play pretty consistently every week, and so I've been playing games a lot. And we used to play like before people were married and stuff. We used to start at 11 a.m. and go till 2 a.m. Like we would have really long game days and play all sorts of stuff. But it wasn't until probably about 5 years ago, I think it was 2019, that I was looking more into getting into game design. And then I met TK and Kolton at a game design convention, Proto ATL.
That's awesome. So you've been together for a relatively short period of time as a trifecta. And the three of you came up with the game company, Kinson Key Games. Where did that name come from? How did you land on that?
The name derives from the KIN in Kinson is the first three letters of my last name. And the SON in Kinson is the last three letters of Kolton's name. And so we came up with the company name before we knew Dennis existed. And so that was where Kinson came from. And we wanted an alliteration. And we thought it would be nice to have like some type of icon, right, that could go along with our logo. And so Kinson Key, it just kind of rolled off the tongue. It felt nice. And so now we just say that, I'm the kin, Kolton's the son, Dennis is the key. But it originated before he was here and came from our names. So
It works. It works. That's fantastic.
yeah.
Now, you've got a Kickstarter starting on March 4th for a new board game called Galactic Cruise. And from having learned that you've liked taking cruises, I can see where some of this inspiration has come from. Can you give us a high-level overview of what your game is?
High level overview is Galactic Cruise is a company that's offering extended stay space vacations, basically taking cruises into outer space. And so players work as supervisors who are basically vying for the CEO position. The current CEO is he's old, he's stepping down in 3 years. Over the course of the players are kind of competing to satisfy the board of directors best in order to become the new CEO. And that's done through worker placement, resource management, some tableau building, and there's several elements of like open drafting where things are kind of ebbing and flowing. So as I take some resources, TK may come along and refill them to get some money for them. So, in the same way that coworkers might actually compete for a promotion, you're competing, but what you're doing is also helping each other. So, that's kind of like the super high level overview of the game there.
That was really good. For
Thanks.
worker placements, one of the things I love most about your game is in most worker placement games, when you pull back your people, it seems like, oh, that's a wasted turn. And in your game, there's no bad action. Even recalling your people is beneficial to you. So I love how you've done that mechanic. It really plays really well. Now, through my sleuthing, which is limited, it appears that this is the second game that TK and Kolton have designed, and the first may be for Dennis. And this is a large jump in scale from Deliverus to Galactic Cruise. What is your favorite part of game design, and what led you to move from a delivery driver card game to an epic space cruise Euro style game?
I think it was a part of our gaming journey, right? Because as Colton said, we had played a few hobby games before COVID. Like we had played Catan. That was back when I was in college. I was introduced to it, and that was about all I played as far as board games go up until 2020. And then Colton introduced me to Carcassonne, and that was the first time I saw a meeple. And I thought it was so cool to just have this little person that was made out of wood. And then he got Viticulture, which was our first worker placement game.
So good.
And so as we started designing games, they kind of looked like the games we were playing. It initially started with a theme, and then as it evolved, it kind of took on the shape of the different games we were playing. So when we would play a new game, we would introduce some new concepts that we loved and saw into Galactic Cruise and try out a lot of things. And so we really spent a lot of that first year of development just dumping everything in and just kind of seeing what stuck. And during that time, we were introduced to Vital Lacerda's games, and that became like one of my favorite kind of style of game. Is just that heavy complexity strategy type of game, especially worker placement driven. And so once we kind of landed on those and we're like, oh, we love this kind of style of game. It really fit well with Galactic Cruise. And so we kind of tailored it to that kind of style of gameplay. And so I think that really played a part. It's just as we became more heavier gamers or dove deeper into the kind of gaming community, Galactic Cruise kind of also followed suit in how it was developed.
I watched some of your videos on YouTube, and if my math is correct, it seems like you started work on this game in early 2021-ish. And over the past few years, it seems to have evolved quite a bit from some of those early prototypes. And even in the last few months, the board itself still continues to look like it's being refined. What's the process of game development been like for the team?
It's a whole process of getting from your idea into your finished game. So I think the most important thing is just getting something out there. So even when I first played Galactic Cruise, it was already pretty good. Like I already liked the game a lot, but there was a lot of stuff that wasn't exactly how we wanted it to be. So there's a lot of just play testing and then discussion and refining, and you just keep doing that cycle over and over. And then it slowly makes its way. Like it's interesting how some things that were all very minor individually added up to something much bigger overall. So I feel like there were definitely some things that, only changed slightly, but then looking back at it, like each time that we changed something, it didn't feel like we were making a major change necessarily. But then looking back at the prototype, so I was just doing this the other day actually. So I just came back from Protospiel Minneapolis, and I was there 1 year before that, and I was looking at that old prototype I brought, and I couldn't even remember some of the stuff on. I was like, what were these tokens? Like, this is weird. Like it just has changed so much, even in this past year where it was already, really good or really far along. I think any changes you're seeing to the board these days are just like an art thing. Like we're definitely happy with where things are now. But it's just interesting to see you can make quite a big difference through all these tiny little changes that just add up over time.
And what immediately drew me to your game was, seeing an advert and it said Ian O'Toole, O'Toole rules. I love his artwork. So I'm glad I saw that. I'm glad you advertised that because that drew me in. And I've since play tested your game through TTS, and I absolutely love it. I cannot wait to play it again. How did you connect with Ian as an artist, and was it hard getting him involved in your game?
If you want Ian O'Toole to be your artist, step one, just double or triple your timeline, because he's a very busy man and you kind of work on his schedule, and that's okay with us. As we were kind of getting into the Lacerda level of games. We said to each other, we said, wouldn't it be cool if Ian O'Toole did the art for this? And at the time, we were like, how do you even get an artist? So we just cold emailed him. It was like, hey, Ian, you want to do art for a game? And we got no response at all, which we don't blame him for because it's like, I'm sure he
he
gets
gets hundreds of emails and
from a whole lot of people. So at the same time, though, TK had reached out to Shem Phillips from Garfield Games just as a fellow human. He was like, "Hey, I see you're in the board game space, and you're also in like the worship music space. Like that's TK's background." So they connected on that level. And Shem played Galactic Cruise. He also played some much lesser games of ours in prototype form. And then later on, Sam McDonald became just a really invaluable resource to us for Galactic Cruise. And so we mentioned to him, we said, we would love for someone like Ian O'Toole to do the art for this. We think he would really fit. He said, I know Ian. I wouldn't mind sending an email on your behalf. And so he did. And all of a sudden we got an email back from Ian saying like, yeah, your game sounds interesting. I'll check it out. And that was maybe in
that was what was
May
that?
of
Yeah, 21?
or maybe it was
No,
something like
22, 22.
22.
it was
Yeah, because our
like
first meeting with Ian was in August of 22.
yes. Yeah, it was like April or May. I think maybe he said yes. He could meet with us, but we didn't meet till was it? I guess it was August.
August or September, yeah.
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 And then he was like, "Okay, I'm interested, but I can't touch it until early 23." Well, at this point, we were hoping we would have been hitting Kickstarter early 23.
Mm.
And by the way, thank goodness that we didn't because the game has gotten so much better in that time. Ian works on 5 or 6 games at a time, and we're by far the least famous people he's doing art for right now. So anytime I'm like, oh, we haven't heard from Ian, it's like, yeah, he's probably doing that Knizia game, or he's probably doing that
Yep.
Lacerda game, or he's probably doing. So I mean, but then the artwork shows up, and it's all worth it. You're like, buddy, you can just take as long as you need to because this stuff is top notch. So I always joke with people. I said, the first step to getting Ian O'Toole to do your art is become friends with Shem Phillips. So there you go.
Your efforts definitely paid off there. Yeah, the art looks absolutely phenomenal for the game. In a recent video you posted on Facebook, you mentioned that you've been working with GameTrayz for your board game insert for this game. I love a good board game insert, and I'm just curious, what's that process been like of working with GameTrayz? Is there any sort of back and forth collaboration, or do you just throw your files at them and leave it all to them?
Both, kind of like what we are with Ian. We trust what they do. We love what they do. And so on one hand, we want to be hands off and let them do their thing because it usually results in the best, creative form when they get to have all of their input in the product. And so with GameTrayz, it's been a little bit of both because we met with them initially. We met with Noah, their designer, and then we kind of gave him our big picture ideas. And then he kind of fed back to us like, hey, here's what that looks like coming from GameTrayz. And we were like, that all sounds great. So then we sent them all of our files, and then they just started making things and sending them to us. And so we've started to receive a lot of the tray designs, and they all look incredible. And of course, they want our feedback, and we've already given them a little bit of feedback, but for the most part, it's more or less exactly what we want or even better. They've been really great to work with as far as making small tweaks or getting suggestions and keeping us informed as the process goes along. But I think for the most part, it's been hands off because we, really trust what they're going to do with it.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it looks great. And I get excited whenever a game's got a good board game insert in it. I think with Galactic Cruise that you've designed something really special here. And the production quality of it is absolutely incredible. Do you foresee this as being a complete experience, maybe a few add-ons during the Kickstarter, or do you see it as something longer by being supported through expansions, down the road, years to come?
Yeah, we're definitely going to have some expansions for it down the road. We've got a couple that will be available during the Kickstarter, more of like modules, so you can kind of just add them in piece by piece, or we probably wouldn't recommend playing with all of the different modules at the same time, but there's nothing stopping you from doing that really. So we have that's going to be part of the Kickstarter, and then we have plans for kind of a bigger box, different kind of experience down the road. So that would be probably our next project after we get this all launched and and into people's hands and stuff, then we'll look at doing that. But certainly we picture definitely porting the game long term. I don't know if we're gonna have like Dominion levels of expansions or anything like that, like put out a new one every year or something. But yeah, definitely we'll have some more stuff coming for Galactic Cruise in the future.
Amazing.
So I keep joking that all these expansions are going to have to go up instead of out because it's already such a table hog. I was like, at some point we just have to like, have a second level of board here. But yeah, we definitely, like Dennis said, we want to support it and any future game that we have to support all the babies that comes out of the company.
Well, your Kickstarter is launching on March 4th. Is there anything else you'd like to say to any potential backers you have?
Something that we often get asked, or I've seen, especially recently on some ads that we've had, is just people wondering, because this is our first game, can they trust us? Is it going to come out? Like, is this going to take 3 years before it shows up at my door? What's it look like? Because I know if you go to like Kinson Key Games on Kickstarter, we've backed, I don't know, 100 or 200 games, but then it has 0 created, right? So like this is going to be the first big one. And so I always like to come along and just kind of reiterate some things we've already said tonight, just kind of about like working with Ian, working with GameTrayz. Like nobody knows who Kolton, Dennis, or myself are, and that's fine. Like we're not trying to be huge, famous people in the industry. Like we know we're nobodies, and nobody knows who our names are, and so it doesn't carry much weight outside of like our small community that we built over the last few years. And so we've made it kind of a big point of interest for us to work with people who are trusted and who do put out great stuff. So like Ian O'Toole, GameTrayz, we haven't announced it yet, but like our manufacturing and fulfillment partners are, well known and always deliver on time. And so just being able to work with really great partners, I think really positions us in a good spot to be able to do what we're going to say and get the game out on time and make sure that it's a great product, right? And the physical product is great. And so that's just something I always like to mention to people. It's just like, I know it's our first game, but you can trust that, we're doing everything we can to make it a great product and get it out in a timely manner.
Well, the people and groups you've partnered with definitely build that confidence because you got some big names coming along for the ride with you. If people want to follow Kinson Key Games and Galactic Cruise, where can they go to follow you and stay up to date?
Big ones are, we've got a website, kinsonkeygames.com. Right now it takes you to our landing page of Galactic Cruise where you can jump on our email list. And then I'm on Facebook quite a bit. We've got a Galactic Cruise Facebook group. Kolton is on Instagram at Kinson Key Games. We've got our Board Game Geek page up for Galactic Cruise Kolton's on there a lot with the forums and answering questions so people can interact with us there. But it's mainly Facebook, and we've got a Discord as well for Kinson Key Games. But I think all of that you can find if you go to our kinsonkeygames.com, enter your email, you get a welcome email. It's got a lot of those links in it if you want to join us.
Well, I'm Les. I hope I've given you a little bit more. And I've been interviewing TK, Kolton, and Dennis of Kinson Key Games, who have a Kickstarter Galactic Cruise launching March 4th. You won't want to miss this one.